Whether you're watching your favorite NBA team at the arena, the bar, or hanging at home, grab an ice-cold Michelob Ultra and enjoy every moment of the NBA season. Stock up today and watch your team drop buckets with a bucket full of ice-cold Ultra. Michelob Ultra. Superior light beer.
Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2026 Anheuser-Busch. Michelob Ultra. Registered light beer. St. Louis, Missouri. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Alcohol available only in select markets.
Are all batteries the same? That's like asking if all soccer players are the same. Take Messi, the most decorated player ever. Is there any other player who has achieved that? No, just him. Now take Duracell. Is there any other battery with power boost ingredients inside? No, just Duracell. Remember, goats only trust goats because they're built different. And Messi only trusts Duracell.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's Mick Tully for the World Martial Arts Television Show. If you haven't subscribed and done that icon thing, let me see, is it round about there? Yeah, you press that, subscribe, like, share. Now guys, we are in for a treat. So this gentleman, right, I'm trying to work out when we first met. I know it would have been at one of the British Opens where he would have been refereeing. And I knew him for a couple of years before. I'm going to actually bring it up because the thing is, if you're going to have a grudge, you got to hold it for a few years. And we will talk about how I was thwarted. I was thwarted in the British Open after a WWE style takedown that put me through a table. And this gentleman was refereeing me. Yes, you may well go, oh my God, I can't remember. Yeah, mate, my memory is long and my vengeance is total. Now, I'm only joking. Neil Harris, if you're watching, it still hurts. He picked me up, launched me through a table. Guess what? We restarted it, and this gentleman got it so that I was underneath a 120-kilo monster in side control. I was like, how? I've just been put through a table, but you know what I mean? Maybe I'm just being a victim here. But anyway, all of that we'll talk about later. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone in between, it's the one and only Mr. Lawrence Dutton. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys? All right?
Yeah, living the dream, mate. Living the dream. So we're going to start, right? It's so cliche, but it's the easiest way to start any podcast, man. Right? Where did you start in martial arts, and why did you start in martial arts?
Well, I started in martial arts when I'd probably say about 6 or 7, when my stepdad took me to Kung Fu. So it was the Bruce Lee era back then. So I was all over that. I trained in a local school near me, probably about 5 miles away in Leyland for a couple of years. And then unfortunately, the gentleman, I have no idea why he stopped, a bit too young for my memory for there. And then we moved over to another place near us called in Freckleton, closer to Blackpool. I did a couple of years there, and then my dad didn't really like the way he was making us pit fight. It was a bit of a fight school sort of situation. So we stopped doing that for a little bit. I can't remember what Dan I got up to or anything. Again, I found my martial art license a few weeks ago in the attic for what my dad got out. So I was a licensed to thrill back then with my Kung Fu. And then I probably took up Thai boxing then in my late teens and did Thai boxing till about 2008. Probably continued a little bit, but then I started Jiu-Jitsu in 2008. And it just took my imagination, like we all do. Well, majority of people back then, I was watching UFC. Thought, wow, this looks fun, a bit of MMA. And then went to a place in Southport at first with a guy called Mac. That was an eye-opener. The gym was on a industrial estate in Southport next to a brothel. So it was,
wow.
Yeah, all in one. You could get anything you wanted. You could have a fight and And
a good time.
Whatever you wanted on today. But he was a bit of a wild one. He'd teach you while eating his McDonald's, having his food. Again, proper old school sawdust sort of gym. And then a bit later in the year, probably did that for about 6 months there. And then I was walking through town with my Thai boxing kit, and Big Legato saw us walking. Ooh. And then his first thing was like, me and my friend's about 6'7", as black as the night, Dominican gentleman. So he walked up to both of us and just said, you like to fight? I'm like, well, we all off to Thai boxing, yeah. And then he pulled us into the gym. His first discussion was, if we clinch, I beat you. And that was his sales pitch. If we clinch, we're going to the floor, I beat you. And I'm like, well, this guy's very confident. He's a big lad, this and that. So I went to a first class. I think it was a Saturday, no gi. I nearly got my arm broke by little Robbie Fallon. Didn't know how to tap. Got me in an arm bar, belly down. Didn't know what was going on. Yeah, so really broke me arm the first one, and I was addicted. I couldn't get enough of it.
Who were you doing Thai boxing with? I'm just interested.
Master Charner, he was called. He was a nice gentleman from the Thai army. And what a character that guy was, Master Charner. That was on Manchester Road, and that was a really famous gym in the Northwest from up here. He was amazing. I was never into the fighting scene, but he had some really good fighters. Fash being one of them, ultimate leg kicks. But his classes were just, he didn't speak to you for months if he didn't know you. It was just proper old school. You had to show yourself until he showed you anything. But he'll be there in the corner throwing his knives at the dartboard. He'd be telling his wife, shouting at him for hunting rabbits in his back garden with his bow and arrow. And he'd always do like a little 15-minute segment at the end, basically saying, like, if you get into trouble onto the street, these are techniques to use. And it was a proper full-on. A few gangsters going to the gym. We had some well-known people coming over from Manchester, but again, they were disciplined. They never never brought any trouble to the gym. It was a good mix of people, and I'd just say it was a really solid, good base for learning the time.
Well, you see, this is you've hit on something there, because I'm a bit of a geek. Like we have a demographic. Yeah, you get young guys listening to us, but most guys are like old school martial artists like us, who read all the magazines. Not all of them, but they'd read some of the magazines, and so you'd be very aware of the culture that was created. I had this theory for years, because Thai boxing never really took off down in London. And it's not because they were soft Southern Chardonnay drinkers. Sort of it was. But what it was it was a cultural thing where down in London I used to always laugh about it when I worked down there in the 80s and the 90s. I think I've met at least 50 people that carried Ronnie Cray's coffin, and they're all handy amateur boxers. You know, the usual stereotype. Like something out of a really bad Guy Ritchie movie, right? But in the North, it was Thai boxing was unreal, but it was like guys like Tony Moore, boys like that, who were just like, it was unreal, because it was like these were already really tough dudes from round, dare I say it, big boo to Maggie Thatcher. So Maggie Thatcher ripped any sort of identity that our generation would have coming through, of being hard-working dudes, right? And I've always, maybe I've overanalyzed this, but it's that whole thing where it's like, I think that's why Thai boxing took such great roots up north and in Wales, because you had these guys looking for an identity, which we'll talk about later, because I know me and you are both on the same page. Why BJJ so popular at the moment is because we've got a whole generation of men who don't know what it's like to be a man, and they've told, guess what? No, you don't want to be toxic. And you're like, what do you mean? A badass? Yeah, you do. It's ace. It's the greatest thing in the world. You know what I mean? But anyway, right? I'll go back to my point. What was it like during that era? You got to remember, this is the early days of real full contact coming through. And I remember watching Thai fights when Cash the Flash was in Birmingham, and like Sensei Dev Barrett, my dear friend, Like, he was never a Thai fighter, but he was a full contact kickboxer who was a killer. What was it like being around that environment back in those days?
I'd say it was very masculating. I said it made you feel like a man going to the gym. You was learning Thai boxing is just pure violence. It's like you get your elbows, your knees. It's just like it's a bit like jiu-jitsu with the fight can finish soon. But then when you go into the proper realms of it and you get the ties, it's just condition. It's just blow for blow. It's just showing, right, I'm harder than you. I'll stand there, I'll take it. And then you give me what you've got. And then, like, with a proper Thai fight, if you go over to Thailand, you don't really see many knockouts. It's not like this one championship nowadays and that. These lads are conditioned to go the full rounds just to go through onto there. And it was just a very hard environment to be in where you'd meet other men, basically. And that's all I can describe it was back then. If we had a few women come in later on, and don't get me wrong, the women were tough as nails as well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a pussified atmosphere at all. There was no wokeness in the gym. People turn up. You'd have your pads with no filling in, so you'd feel the full kicks on your arms.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky to have, if you got a pad which were less than 10-year-old. So you'd go on with bruised up arms, you'd go up with bruised up legs. But then it was just a very, I'd say, it's bad to say now, but a very manly environment to be around, which as a boy, as an 18-year-old boy, and you could look up to these men as peers, especially from someone like myself from a broken home where my father wasn't around as much. It was good to see these guys who what we'd respect back then as tough men. So yeah. I think it was a different time back then.
But it is quite funny because it's a bit early for me to say this because I was gonna save this for a little bit later. But I'd like your input on this because I've noticed more and more. So me and you both know, and I'm guilty of this, bro. You know this. I've got 33 gis, right? So the thing is, why? Because I've got ADHD and I like gis, and I've got too much money. But more importantly than that is, I just like cool shit. I like cool shit, and I slate everybody if I ever see them. If I see a guy walk into the gym wearing a through dark BJJ gi, I'm like, if they get the gi out first, I'm like, you better be a fucking brown belt because I've got some mad gis, right, as you well know. Well, I've got some mad gis, but I've paid. I can wear them now. When you see a white belt wearing a show you roll, you're like, dude, what are you fucking doing? Come on, mate. You're a tourist. Yeah, you know what I mean? You're a tourist, right? Yeah. But here's the thing. It's like you got the guys that are walking around wearing the through dark and they're talking like they're special ops guys and stuff and they're working in a call center. And I'm not going to knock these guys because they're finding their own way in life. But what do you agree with me that there is, as you said, there's emasculating energy, but again, this is like I have to be very careful the way I say this because it's so more nuanced than ever. Some of the toughest people I know, and easily some of the best teachers I've ever had, shout out to Charlie Simpkin, are women. Some of the best Vanessa English, unreal. Fionn, unreal. I'm sorry, but I will take the Pepsi challenge that these girls are world class athletes and teachers, which doesn't normally happen. So when I say it's a emasculating environment, I think the better term would be empowering without sounding really woke and, like, why do you think that BJJ has gone from, as you were saying, Legato walking down the road, seeing a big Dominican dude and a northerner and going, you guys like to fight, to this, I want to say in a parallel universe, what Andrew Tate, all these manosphere boys wish that they were saying is actually happening and being done in BJJ, right? Which I'm seeing this. Like we're seeing the dark side of it too, which we've talked about and we'll talk about later. But why do you think it's such a resonating message is probably the best way for more resonating pastime for people right now than ever before?
It's pretty. I think celebritism has definitely took hold of jiu-jitsu. I think with the amount of celebrities doing the jiu-jitsu now, it's definitely pushed it forward to people who probably wouldn't even been on the radar of jiu-jitsu whatsoever. So like when me and you started, it would have been, if you saw UFC, then you would have been like, what's a bit more interested? What's this? What's this ground game? What's this and that? But I think because we got a real lack of wrestling in this country, that we just didn't know there was some sort of ground grappling going on. So I think it's just very popular right now because it's something we've not really had before. So up in North, where I'm from, like you said, there's a lot of massive Thai boxing gyms all over, Master Skens, Bolton, Manchester, Preston. We wouldn't have even known about wrestling at all. I think it was only Bolton who had the catch wrestling over there.
Yeah.
And without the internet, without someone telling you, we'd have had no chance of knowing what were going on outside our own little village or whatever. But I think it's just been a crazy cocktail of celebritism, of people doing it, the internet, and just the actually honest nature of jiu-jitsu. So because you're not getting your head kicked off every 2 seconds and you're not getting your teeth knocked out or you're not going home with concussion after a heavy gym session, I think that addiction to actually being physical with another human being, the actual touch, I think that's the addictive part and that's what draws people into it. And because especially nowadays with where people train, like I said at the beginning, when I first turned up, someone tried breaking my arm first class. It's like they're half the size you. They want to show you like they're the man in the gym. But I think because jiu-jitsu's evolved so much, even over the last few years, but I think especially after COVID, it's evolved so fast now to it's been advertised more of a pleasant pastime rather than a self-defense pastime. So I don't know if it's the sports jiu-jitsu part of it who's took hold or if it's just the people's voices on the internet. Because I did read something, I can't remember how many years ago, someone asked Muhammad Ali about something and he just said, I don't watch jiu-jitsu, I'm a black belt. He said, I teach and I train. I've got no interest in anything else in the jiu-jitsu scene. And I think that's what drives jiu-jitsu forward. There's a lot of, I wouldn't even say blue belts now, but white belts really drive the ecosystem of jiu-jitsu through to what it is. Because they're new to it, they're still keen, they love it, they've found the new passion, so they really drive it. And then I don't know if it's the algorithm on the Instagram that's took over, but what I do say is, I say it to everyone, that jiu-jitsu is a sport of amnesia. So people forget very, very quickly. So I think as we get on, you're into your journey as well, 16, 17, 18 years in, it's like we've seen it all before. We've seen all these people coming in. It's like having apprentices when you're at work. It's like you've seen it all before. And as you get older, it's just like, just let them do it. Live your life. Like you said at the beginning, roll with it. You have fun, whatever you're going to do, create your gi brand, be the new kid on the block. But I think with jiu-jitsu, everyone likes the new shiny. So,
well, it's so funny you said this, right? So, two things I'm going to have your opinions on, right? So the first one is the constraint-led, right? So the constraint-led training, right? So the only person, and I'm going to give him a shout out, right, is Paul Genge from Stealth, right? So he's there. He approaches it the way that, because he's our age, he approaches it with, I for the longest time thought constraints led was that, we used to call that specific sparring. That was it.
That's it. You learn the drill in the class, and then you're sparring at the end. It's you can only do this, and this is how you do it. Yeah. So I like that, and I like that, especially the way that he's doing it. So the way he's framed it is, we all had it, and I know you'd be guilty of it because I'm guilty of it, right? So if we were doing specific and we start in side control or Kessa, or with me, if I start in half guard or with the knee shield, great, I'm going to get you into lockdown, I'm going to sweep you, going to terrorize you for a little bit, and I'll get up on top, and then I'll just deliver a Kimura, i.e. Kimura delivery system. I'm the most basic individual you'll ever meet on the planet, right?
because for the simple reason it worked once. Fuck it. Let's see if it works again. Sorry for swearing, algorithm. So that's it. So the next thing, which really gets me, is that ecological based training, right? So the ecological based training, you're going to love this. Ecological based training is the ultimate, it's the final boss of leaving 8 to 10 white belts and 1 freshly minted blue belt alone with no supervision. Because you watch them and they're floundering around doing mad shit, and then every now and again they do a Chumbawamba moment. Yeah, the whole infinite amount of time, infinite amount of monkeys, infinite amount of typewriters. We get the collected works of Shakespeare. Most of the time they're just throwing shit at each other, right? And that's what I see when I see this ecological thing that's going on. And me, I just look at it and go, how about understand posture? And then first of all, this is really going to show, this is a Rorschach test for me. So Lawrence, my biggest fear in life is to find out that any of my sons is a guard puller. That's the truth, right? Honestly, if I find out that any of my sons pull guard, I'm like, I say that to my eldest son, Jack. He's a very good brown belt. And I said, if I ever see you pull guard, I'm raging. And he went, why? I said, no, man, WrestleMania, dude. Come on. We went to the Manchester Evening Arena and we saw Eddie Guerrero, mate. Embrace that guy. That's what I would like to go for. But I said the ecological thing, that's one thing, right? The constraints-led thing, that's another. And I'd like your thoughts on this. And we're going to go into a bit murky water here for a second, right? Sort of the cult of personality in BJJ, right? So you mentioned Legato, who I have this great picture of me. You might have seen it. Me, Roger, Neil Simpkin, Legato's there, Monstro's there, Zikic is there, and we're down. Roger's getting ready for an MMA fight, and I'm down there. And these are all giants of the game. All of them got wicked personalities, but none of them felt the need to be like mysterious. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Mystery Men. Yeah, there's a movie there. The guy, the Sphinx, and his superpower is he was mysterious. And that's what you have, like, because everyone nowadays, if I watch anyone do a tutorial and they speak more than 30 seconds, they're embracing their inner John Danaher. And I'm like, just because you're making it sound fucking weird and making it sound esoteric, you're not making me believe it. You're not making me believe that you're enlightened, right? And that's going to lead me into, when did you first see, and usually it comes in at about a purple belt, I've always noticed it, right? Guy's a blue belt, he's great. And we'll use a guy, yeah, because I don't really see women do this. And then when he gets his purple belt, he turns into Bodhi. Patrick Swayze's character in in Point Break, and he becomes this like Dalai Lama in spandex. So when did you first notice that creeping in? Because I never saw that shit up until about halfway through my blue belt.
Yeah, I've got to be one of the main suspects for that as well. I took all of that with all the stupid memes, like, and the oceans, the world, and the shark, all that sort of BS. Yeah. I think you get hold of that. I think you get dragged into that white and blue belt because you're learning something so unique and new, and you get drilled into yourself that you're the 1% in jiu-jitsu. No one else does this. No one survives this. It plays on your ego massively. I think I went through a dark patch of being like that for a good 18 months until I got a bit of advice from my older friends that, like, listen, just stop the bullshit, mate. Like, you're just doing a martial art. You're not doing anything else. So I think if you don't have the right friends around you keeping you in line, then that can be your entire jiu-jitsu journey. And it just escalates and escalates and escalates. And then, like you said, before you knew it, you're the Dalai Lama and then go through. But I think they went through a stage, I don't know how many years ago, because as you get older, every year merges into the same now. But I used to be heavily on the underground. I've withdrawn myself from there because that's a cesspool of an environment. Awful. So, but I remember people going on there just preaching like the Dalai Lama, like the God. And people just, like I said, listen, mate, just because you got a belt doesn't make you a better human being. And I took took that instead, that like, yeah, just don't listen to the noise, continue on your own path, become a better person yourself, and just don't lecture other people. Onto one of the main things I found in life as getting older was when I was growing up, I used to think everyone was a weirdo, but then I realised I'm the weirdo, so I need to keep my mouth shut sometimes and keep it open, and just yeah, don't criticise people for their opinions, and just understand it's their opinion and it might not align with mine, but that's probably more of a me issue than a them issue. So it's like, who am I to preach to anyone about what they're doing in their life?
Yeah, but you see, this is the thing. You've hit on something that's really it's piqued my interest here, because as you said, like, so BJJ is mad because you'll get your phenoms. I've got a couple of guys, like, in my recent history that I've trained with, who, like, they've made me question everything. It's like 3-stripe white belt who's giving me like a really, really hard time. And the only way I'm getting him is I've got the war of attrition thing going on, and he's only a young guy who isn't seasoned enough to know that it isn't going to kill him. I can convince them that this is really, really painful, whereas they don't understand that. I'm gonna paraphrase Khabib here when he gave the trophy, the Hall of Fame. And this lady says, "It's heavy," and he went, "Life is heavy." And like, I love that from Khabib, because like Khabib said that, and you're like, amazing. And it's like, I think with jiu-jitsu, there's such an exponential growth in ability so quickly, because you go from being an absolute, I don't know my left from my right, and then you've never ever been any good at any sport. You've never ever been good at a team sport, especially. And then you've got this mad paradox of, this is the most individual thing in the world. Because everyone goes, it's a classic Gracie Barra. We were there, right? And it's like, you're part of a team, and you're like, I never felt I was part of a team when I was on the fucking mat going up against a guy. It was just all me. So you had that paradox thing going on as well. And you bought into it. But then when you turn around and said, don't judge them, they're on their own journey and stuff, that's 4-stripe, purple belt, brown belt logic, where you turn around and go, there's no point in me saying anything to you, because you have to learn this lesson. And it was like you were saying about the underground. The underground's a cesspool. I've seen it where, well, me and you both know, because we were sort of guilty of this. Whoop, whoop, it's the sound of the police. We remember the old school dojo storms. I had to ring up Tony Pillage and say to him, you want to close your door tonight, mate? What? Well, I've got 30 new starters coming. No, you've got 30 guys coming down to kick the shit out of that fake black belt that you've got, Tony. That's what's coming your way. And you try to explain that to new guys, and they go, yeah, but we would just call the police. And you're like, nowadays you're rolling with neurosurgeons, and you're rolling with doctors, and you're rolling with like actors. We were rolling with drug dealers and bouncers. And as I said, that I've got this thing which I will like your thoughts on. We went from a period of, as you said, the only people who stayed in it were tough guys. And then somewhere along the line, I'd like to say it was the rise of John Danaher as a teacher. And then more, depending on, like, if you're working class, I'll say the Diaz brothers, right? If you're middle class, I'll say the Meows, which is like, autism comes in all sorts of different flavors, right? So if you look at Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz, those guys are autistic as hell, right? And then you look at the Meow brothers, and they're the same. I'm the same, right? And I loved it, because the minute I realized that jiu-jitsu was basically, now it's weaponized autism, I was like, now you're talking. Yeah, come on. Like, I never ever looked at Rain Man and had an affinity with Dustin Hoffman. You know what I mean? I was looking more at like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando playing John Matrix. So my question to you on that is, why is there so many crazy personalities now coming through, not just in the instructionals, but in jiu-jitsu totally?
Yeah, just touching on your point with autism, I don't know what it is. I don't know if the neurodiverse find each other, because again, I'm definitely on the spectrum. So I don't know if it's like, I don't know if we gravitate to each other. I don't know if we send each other bat signals. Like, I really don't know how it works. But especially when I was teaching my friend's gym in Leyland, we started with one young autistic child, and then before I know it, we had 10. So I don't know if they talk in the circles now and they say this is a place which is safe, this is a place which is good for them, this is what opens the mind, or if it's people talking. I really have no idea, because I never see any advertisement saying this is the autistic sport, this is what we do. So it's only really Mr. Hardy now who's really pushing the autism and the neurodiversity into it and celebrating it. But for the last 15 years, it's just like we just all gravitated towards it. I really don't know.
Exactly that.
The universe doing it, or I've got no explanation for why we've all ended up here. But I'd say
we're here.
Yeah, we're here. And
we're here.
Autism is just a massive part of jiu-jitsu, and it's nothing. Like I said, we're probably all on the spectrum, but it's not a knock at autistic people at all, or it's really good that we found a place where people are. But again, I don't think it should be the identity of jiu-jitsu either, which is what we're heading over to from, like you said, it was a hard man sport, and then now that's disappeared. Now it's an autistic sport. We need to find a level ground between that. There is hard people in it and there is autistic people in it, and I think with the UFC, with Mikey, I don't think that's such a strong point for the community at the minute.
No.
Because that young gentleman is seriously hard on the spectrum, and he's pushing it. I don't know if he's playing the game or if he's doing it onto there, but...
Well, you see, this is it. So you said a few things there, right? So here's the thing. So with me, I got into my 50s. Like, I always thought I was just a bit weird, but the crack is, as you said earlier, which really resonated with me. One of the attractions to martial arts, all martial arts really is, there's a bit of it. You get a touch of exceptionalism in it, right? You know, there's a reason why you watch Yojimbo and then watch the Seven Samurai, and you go, "Oh, more Yojimbo." Because I always say to my wife, you know, I'm a masterless samurai, I'm a Ronin. Maybe that's a philosophical thing with me, where Lawrence, I don't want to believe that there is 8 billion. Like, as I said, I got to quote Jeff Thompson on this once. Jeff said to me once, he goes, "Mick, you got to remember, you're 1 in a million." I went, "What?" So statistically, there's nearly 8,000 Mick Tullys on the planet. And he went, "What?" And I said, "Well, there's 8 billion people nearly now." And I said, "No, those Chinese keep having more kids." And he was like, no, but what I mean, and I was like, no, what it is I want to believe that I'm exceptional, but I'm not. And it's like, whenever I talk about weaponized autism and stuff like that, I'm always at pains to say, right, I've got friends of mine who have got like children on the spectrum there. When I hear people say stuff, go, you don't realize what these guys are actually living. Like, their life is literally, when we want to talk routine-based, slave to a routine. And, you know, for them, that's normal. That's their life. So to denigrate that or to take the mickey out of it, that's not good. But the only thing is, especially with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I truly believe, it's like you said about Mikey Musumeci, I think Mikey's playing a little bit. I think Mikey plays the part well, because he knows that's his unique selling point. Just the same as Gordon Ryan plays so Gordon Ryan is exactly what a jacked up maniac prodigy who's made a shitload of money really, really quickly and has got very, very strange outlook on life. Yeah. And he's going, right, yeah, I'm leaning into this. I don't want to sound like a hipster, but, you know, he's leaning into it because it's, again, we talked about the cult of personality, right? Because this is going to lead me into a question that I really want your thoughts on, right? So when me and you first started training, I first started training because I saw Rick Young and I was like, I'd like to be like Rick. Then I met Braulio Estima and he's a rock star, and I was training at Braulio's, and then hooked back up with Neil Simkin, right? After years of knowing him through karate and trained with him. So in our day, we weren't attracted by a team mentality or, you know, buying into the Horian Gracie or the Henna Gracie, the Hiram Gracie nonsense. He's a great teacher, we'll follow him. Nowadays, I don't see anyone following teachers, and the team thing is gone now. Like, honestly, it's like the Wizard of Oz. The minute that we saw behind the curtain, everyone's now gone like this, Lawrence. What? So I can't open up a gym within like 3 miles of this guy. And you're like, right, oh, okay, but I live in London.
I think that's a lot to do with the British mentality, our DIY attitudes towards life itself. Our little island has always been a conquering nation for some reason or the other. I think the Brazilians, the Americans, they love all the teams. We're a team with this and that. But I do think in the UK, that's our we're anti-team, basically.
Yeah.
We're more of the, we want to do it ourselves. And I think that's why Jiu-Jitsu has grown so massively in this country, that of our do-it-yourself attitude, that they've seen people do something and think, well, I can do that. I'm going to go and do it. And because, especially if we just rewind to 2008 when we started, you'd probably get 3 or 4 instructionals on YouTube if you wanted to find some new technique. And this is why Jiu-Jitsu was different back then, because I've heard stories off the lads in the past, especially, of course, when we was travelling, he told us a lot of stories of the origins of Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. So when they started, they used to learn a technique. So Mick Tully would have his Kimura system, I'd have my system, and then someone else would have their system. And you couldn't learn that system because you couldn't train at their gym. The only way you'd learn that is in competition, by coming against that system and then going home and thinking, right, breaking it down off memory, because you had no video back then. It was like, what do they do? How do we do this? Let's improvise. And that's how it built. And the early stage of Jiu-Jitsu, it was like that still, especially in this country. But then with the speed of the way the internet grew, how people film stuff, how stuff was more available, I think that accelerated into it. And now it just gives everyone the opportunity to do whatever they want. And it gives them options. If you get a kid now who's autistic, can watch a video, can memorize it, can see every single little detail, especially with the kids nowadays who spend their lives watching videos, they can break stuff down. Me and you might, we need a different angle, we need this and that. They can look at it and think, right, this is happening, this is now. And then they might have that skill of visualizing, learning stuff. And there might be a white belt, a blue belt, and they might see a black belt, they might see a few Braulio's moves and think, well, I can teach that now because I've seen it. And then they go and practice on the dummy at home with their friends or whatever. And then that's how I think it turns from garage jiu-jitsu into, right, I can bring these people in. And then before you know it, you've got 10, 20 people, you've got a gym. And then before you know it, that 10, 20 people's 100 people, and they've got a business. And then I think that's how jiu-jitsu grows massively compared to a lot of other martial arts. Again, because I'm in wrestling now, I can see it with I said to these guys, wrestling is where jiu-jitsu was in 2007. It's like all the wrestlers in the UFC are champions. Jiu-jitsu isn't really, they're not champions anymore. It's a different sport. But wrestling just doesn't know how to sell it. They're not Brazilian Americans. They don't know how to sell the sport. You're out of it when you're in the 30s compared to us old fellas who can do jiu-jitsu as long because we can hold a gi and we can control someone. In the no gi, it's a lot harder with the same in the wrestling. But I think with our do-it-yourself attitude towards everything we do in life, I think that's what drove jiu-jitsu on so much. The amount of blue belts I knew who just dished off and started their own schools and now they're black belts and they've persevered with it and gone through. But with a lot of other things in life, you have to be a master before. Say you went to college and only probably now at your stage in your plastering career, you could think, right, I can go and tutor that now. I can take all my skills to go on there. Yeah. But if you've got a young lad with you for 12 months, are they going to be able to do off and do the same thing? I don't think they will because they can't watch a video. Well, possibly can do nowadays on how to do it. But I think with jiu-jitsu, I think that's how, especially in the UK, it's been driven forward and the team's just imploded because it's like, I don't need a team. I've got me and my friends and we are our own team now.
Well, you see, this is the thing, right? So, you've hit on something which, especially in the UK, when it's an enforced hierarchy, it always gets rebelled against, right? So it kills me because right now I can look over into the corner and I've got 10 GB gis stacked up, and I thought about selling them, and then I've got some great memories in some of them. I sold a few of the Keiko Rackers, the old school ones with Tasmanian devils on them and that. couple of lads wanted to buy them wicked, right? I look back in Gracie Barrett, but we weren't a corporate team. Like most of the guys didn't know who Carlinos was. It was like you said about the innovation. And I know because I remember me and you on about this. In 2011, Braulio, and again, you got to give Braulio his due. The guy's a pioneer. He literally showcased and premiered an inverted triangle at the ADCCs. It's like you're at a competition, and then we're like, everyone's like, what was that? And we were looking at each other going, how did they do that? A couple of months later, Victor drops the steamer lock. And everyone's going, but it's just a footlock with a rear naked chokehold on it. Well, no one else did it. How's that work out? And so we were pioneers then, right? And you said something about the DIY, which is going to get me into, I know for the guys who are watching this, I've always been very intrigued. And it's one of the reasons I've been after you for years, because DIY, right? So when we first started, how many real competitions were there out there? There was the British Open.
Yep. The British. All I knew was the British Open and the Hereford Open when I first.
That was it. So literally,
I was a bit too far away from. It was the Essex Open, and now it's the English Open. I was a little bit too far. The pigeons didn't fly that far to tell me where that was going on.
Well, you see, these. So you had Dave Coles, and then you had Braulio start with the British, and then it sort of expanded. Then you had the gi and the no gi. But I remember them both being at the same time, and then they became two separate events. So at what point, and first of all, what belt were you when you decided that you would start in the competition scene, putting on competitions?
Well, my journey is a bit more old school with the jiu-jitsu competitions, because it won't be allowed nowadays, but we had a competition, I think it was the Northwest Open 2009, and Gus and Ruben held it in Preston. Yeah. And they were asking for volunteers and referees, because obviously there weren't any around. So I put my hand in the drawer, as you say, and just said, yeah, I'll referee. No experience, no anything. I had a little run through from someone at the gym about the rules and just dived in from there. I did that competition. And then I spoke to the owners. I thought, this is a nice environment to be around. I enjoy this competition environment. It's something I can do with. I had my first aid certificate. So they're like, come on, you can be my first aider while you do multiple jobs when you're onto there. So they went from a 2-man band to a 3-man band with me travelling over the country for £100, not including any travelling expenses or anything. I just got me £100. If it covered my expenses, I was happy. I went all over the country with them. I went to Scotland, Midlands. We had some Manchester Opens, and then that 2009. So I did that probably for 4 years with them. 4 years, but back then was probably 4 or 5 competitions a year. There wasn't much. And then Gus got into the UAE. So it was UAE Jiu-Jitsu, because basically Gus was the main tournament organiser in the country back then. Yeah. So he got in with them. So we started doing the UAE comps. That was a really good experience for myself, because I went from learning from Gus, which back then there was a big skill to running competitions, like organising the brackets, stuff like that, which over the time we did mess up a few times in certain things, but we will hold our hands up. And we didn't understand, well, especially when me and Ruben took over early doors from Gus, when Gus weren't there. We messed a few things up with timings, upset a few athletes, but it wasn't intentional. It was just learning the trade.
Yeah, but that was very early days. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to step in here. I said this to Neil Simpkin. So when Neil first started doing the Elites Kids competition, obviously for years and years he ran the British Open. Steve Fan, I've got to give a shout out to Steve.
Memorial for Steve Fan.
Yeah, that was it, right? So Steve was the first guy. I remember him doing the first British Open at the Senni, right? So he did that. And then I fought several times on the British Open. And what category you in? I had to walk down the wall to an A4 piece of paper with my name on it. And then it'd say roughly what time I'd be on, first of all, it was like what area. And then the classic, no one wanted to be on map 5, I think, as I recall. That was the meme back in those days. And then I said to Neil, I said, you go from that and you go to the elites where it's like, right, okay, everyone's given their time to their minute sent via app 3 weeks before you get to compete. And there's massive TV screens there, everything. And like, so Neil, you got to give him his props, right? Neil literally took basically stuff that was on the back of a beer mat to the 21st century when it came to competitions. But what belt were you when you first started getting involved in like promoting competitions?
Well, like I said, I cut my teeth with I call it my apprenticeship, going through with Gus, with the UAE and stuff. And then it was 2014 when Gus went off to do the Grand Slams. He had to sell BJJ 24/7. So I got the call, do you want to buy it? I'm thinking, okay, how much do you want for it? And it was, I think it was 46,000, he said at first. So 46,000. So he said to me, do you want to do this? Do you want to buy this? So I thought to myself, you know what? It's got potential. I know I always like a hard challenge. There was potential there. So I thought, how can I do this? So I took 20 grand out, remortgaged on the house, put a down payment on, and then I worked for 2 years for free, basically running the competitions and paid him back. I think it was like 15 or I think it was 3 grand a month at first. So I think it took me a year to pay him off, but then I got myself in a year's worth of debt paying him off with credit cards, buying the medals. So probably took me 3 years to sort it all out after them. But by that time, I'd seen the growth for competitions year on year. I could see where it is today. Back then, I could see where it was going to go. I could see the potential in competition. I could see it growing. So for me, I thought that this is going to be a good investment, so something I can continue going through. In hindsight, I should have done the British way and just done it do it yourself and started my promotion. But I won't dwell on anything. We've kept the brand going. The brand's 15 years old. It started as grab and pull. It's now BJJ 24/7. We're part of Jiu-Jitsu history, but in a sport of amnesia, what does history actually mean nowadays? So for us people like us, it's a nice thing. Like I'm continuing a company through, but in hindsight, if I'd have put that 20,000 into a new company, could it have been a little bit different? That's something I do think about sometimes. But again, I'm going to give Gus his props. He was a tough guy to work for. He was, again, like us, different, which everyone in the sport is. But he taught me a lot. Without his teaching to go, so I just think sometimes that you got to pay for an education. It got him what he wanted. It got me what I wanted. So in business, nothing's free, is it? So
no. Well, the thing is, Lawrence, you said that. So as don't want to say that you sounded despondent when you said it, but what you got to remember is, with you especially, you went from a nondescript sports centre, swimming pools a few times. That famously, it was over in Birmingham, and I can't remember where it was. Where I was put through the table by Neil Harris, where you were refereeing it. That was it was an Ogie, swimming pool. Yeah, it was a swimming pool in 2016. I want to say, I can't remember. I don't want to mention the guy's name, but there was only 4 of us in the category. And Neil Simpkin turned around and he particularly took a dislike to one of these characters. And he said, if you don't torture this guy, don't come back and train with me. And I was like, what? And it was like, yeah, no. And that's the first round. So I was there and I'm watching him and he's just going like, no. He goes, don't submit him yet. And I was like, what? He goes, no, grind him out. Make him realise where he's from. And I'm like, it's going, what am I like? I felt like I was Whitey Bulger or something. I thought I was being sent out to put a hit on this guy. And then, as I said, the second one, Neil Harris, who's one of the nicest guys in the world, and literally bumped through the table. And then, we laughed about it afterwards, and then I mentioned it a few times here. But what I was going to say is, when you go despondent on stuff like that, so especially 24/7, right? So in the genesis of the sport, like nowadays, you can compete every other week now. There's somebody doing something like to the point now that we have to do quintets, we have to do team things. Because guess what? We need this new way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
How many other people could turn around and say, well, I actually can more at somebody. Let's say I'm going to think of the most famous person like you. actually my favourite. My wife's going to love this, where Johannes actually dances every year on Strictly. Like, yeah. So the Tower Ballroom in Blackpool, right? Yeah. Who else would think of having a competition at the like the iconic Tower Ballroom? Well, how did that one come about?
This is where my ego comes into a good thing for people, because my life isn't revolved about money. A lot of these competition organisers, it's the cheapest venue, the biggest space, and go in front of there. But because this has been my little baby from taking it over, I wanted to give people the best experience possible. So the ballroom was, I think it's been classed as the best venue. I think on Reddit, there was a Reddit thread about being the greatest ever jiu-jitsu venue. And if you've been put on your back and you're looking up at that ceiling, I don't think there's any better views of being in a bad position than that.
No.
Onto there. So, but again, I can't take credit straight away. Gus Oliveira and Diff from Blackpool, they first did that. I went and organised the competition with them there. They got a stellar deal back in the day. This is when it was only a formatted event. We had like probably 100 people at the venue back then. And then we've been back and forth to that venue quite a few times because it swaps hands between council and private properties. So sometimes it's affordable, sometimes it's not. It ranges in value from 7 to 10,000. But it's one of them competitions where you can only get 6 mats in now. So if we fill it, it cuts its teeth. We don't make a profit. And that's the same with the Brighton competition down in Hilton. If we fill that one out, see, I don't think you've been down to one now. That is one of the greatest.
Literally, I hear nothing but great report. Because the thing is with Brighton's like Tatooine for me. So you go down. I've worked down there, but you go down there and it's like England. So Coventry's great because it's like a geographical oddity. Yeah, I don't want to sound like George Clooney and Oh Brother Where Art Thou, right? But it's like, oh, this is geographical oddity. You're 2 hours from everywhere, and we sort of are. But then Brighton is like, how is it? Like, it's like going to Newquay. So how why is it 5 hours to get here now? And then, like, you know, when you get down to Brighton, you realise why it's 5 hours because it's fabulous. Yeah, and I'm a straight dude, and I love Brighton. It's that cool, right?
It's a hidden gem. I love the atmosphere. I love everything about it. Like you said, it's like a Newquay. It's changing a bit now, but when I first went down there, it was just it just made me want to move down south, and I hate the south. I'm only joking. It's just it's closer to France than it is Preston, and I think you can feel that, like the vibes on it down there. It's just great. And to be fair, that's where BJJ 24/7 was created. That's where it originated. That's where the first competitions were. So it was something that we wanted to set up at that venue. If we could break even on it, then it'd stay there. And it's just a homage to the community down there and all the good stuff them guys, Yusuf and the lads and Ivan, all the gyms down there, which have built a community big enough to support the event because it's in the north end of nowhere. Not many people travel to it, especially now. We had a few from London years ago, but London, it's its own ecosystem. People don't need to leave that place now.
No.
We don't need to. So it's just the local lads keeping that running. They support us no end. And without them, there wouldn't be that competition. And we only put it on for them as well. So, yeah, I'm really appreciative for people down there. I liked going down. Again, it doesn't make me any money, but it's a lovely place to be 3 times a year, to stay in a hotel, to see the community and just be... It's, again, for my ego, it inflates my ego that I can feel like I can put on a competition in this place and it's worthwhile, and it just makes me feel like all the graft we've gone through were worthwhile for that.
Yeah, but you see, you talked about the community. I hear all this. I'm going to paraphrase Norm MacDonald. Norm MacDonald says, the community. He goes, well, where is the community? I don't know. But the BJJ community that you said is the truth, because again, you got to shout out to you because you created, as I said, you created an event that people went to. As you said about London, London's funny. It has got its own ecosystem now, like really has. And I'm not knocking these guys because they've got everything. You know that. Every Cockney you ever meet, it's like they live in the centre of the universe because they go, well, why do I need to go anywhere? You go, I get that. I get that. No, you don't. But it's like when you shouted out, I've got give a shout out to my mate Sam Gilliani, right? So Sam's one of Nabby's black belts, right? Yusuf's, right? So I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember the British Open where you filmed it and I did the commentary? For Nabby.
Braulio versus Yusuf.
yeah. So, and it was so good because Yusuf's like this, going just total fanboy about it, and I'm just right riffing. It was you who recorded it, and then I don't know, it's somewhere out there anyway, right? But it is mad. But that's going to lead me on to, right. So before we go to where you are now, like we had. I did some MCing for you once for Densetsu when you were there. Yeah, that was the beginning, man. Yeah. And how did that come about?
Well, at that time, it just felt like I think I started in 2015, and then 2016, 2017. It just felt personally that we broke the wave. I don't know how we can describe it, but we paved the way for people, and then it was their time just to, I can't say copy, but just to jump in with very little effort. They could just set up a competition and just go because the blueprint were there for them. All they had to do was I'm not going to say names, but all they had to do was compete on our circuit for a year or two, be around us, listen to us, snoop on us, and then basically they learn how to do the game by doing little, and then it's like, well, we can do this. But again, like I go back to your plastering, that it's experience that counts. People think they can do it when they can't, and then this is what's really gone on with a lot of these competitions, because that's 2016. So one of them now, I'm not going to say the name of the competition, but it's 9 years old now, and it's still making the same mistakes it was making at the beginning. So obviously the potential's there for it, but they haven't got the pedigree or the training to understand what they're going. They just jumped on it for the money. And then again, going back to sport of amnesia, people want to see the new shiny, people support it, they slag it off but support it. So every credit to these people, but it's a real shame that I can't rewind back to 2015, get all the competition organisers together and just say, listen guys, like, let's not be greedy. Let's do one a month each. Let's make them the biggest competitions we can. Let's make them all as big as the British Open. And then we don't have to do multiple. We don't have to do this and that. We don't have to. We can work together. We can sell them all out. We can actually build a big competition circuit where people can go to a comp once a month, which is more than enough going through. But so we had that people just jumping onto there. So I just thought, right, what can I do? What's different again? Because I want to be an innovator. I don't want to copy. I want to innovate the jiu-jitsu scene. What can I do if people are going to go to the new shiny and it's going to take customers from us? What can I do to try and create a new business onto there? And then I thought, you know what, it's not really going to be a business. Let's give something back again. And then so we started. And I've got to give Tom Breeze a shout out, because Tom Breeze made the call out on the underground saying, listen, I'll fight anyone for 200 quid. So I said, right, if we can find 8 people willing to do that, then we've got a competition. We did that at Renegade, I think it's called, in Birmingham. That was No Guts, No Glory. That was filmed on a potato. We just got everyone into the gym. We went through. Bradley Hill won that, flying armbar.
Yeah, I remember it.
And then after that, I thought, you know what, this was pretty popular. I don't think I had any views like that online before. I think we got into the hundreds of thousands of views, and I was just stopping starting a Facebook Live. There was zero production to it whatsoever. It was just so bare bones. It was unbelievable. And then so we found the Guildhall, which is an old historic venue in Preston, where we used to have the World Snooker Championships there. They were pretty on their arse, ready for closing. So we had a theatre. I think it was £700. Weren't too bad. So I thought, right, if I'm spending £700, I'm happy to throw that, get a few spectators in, just to create something again. So me and a couple of my friends from Gracie Bar, they probably won't want the name shouting out. They don't like popularity, but they'll know who they are onto there to give them the dues. They helped us with us for that. We got them in, and it was a very similar crowd to the first one. We had a few of the guys coming back, and then we've got to say that was the birth of the Gripper.
Mate,
the Gripper. He won. He proposed. He took the money and spent the money on something which was wholesome for his engagement and stuff. So it was a crazy event. It wanted to be no time limit, sub only going through. Yeah. But I think after 6 hours of competing, we're running out of time. So we had to think on our feet, which again is what I love about events. We just had to switch it up. We weren't going to be there all night, so it's like
I liked it with you. You looked over to me once, and you go like that. You go, stretch it, stretch it, stretch it. Fletch had gone to the toilet, right? Fletch gone to the toilet, and they were like, "You ref the fight," and I'm like, "I'm the MC," and it was Fionn. It was Fionn versus Maya, right?
Yeah.
So Maya's married to my dear friend Paul Cole. Fionn's the star. Fletch has gone to the toilet, and you were like, "They're on next," and we were like, and it was mad because when we went in for the meeting first, I was like, "Any nicknames?" And it was like Ashley Amos is go in there, and I see like. So go in there, and Shakes is there, right? So go in. Shakes has got, the Abertillery crew are in there. Ashley Amos is there. And I said, so nicknames? And he goes, yeah, the Chocolate Pig. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, the Soul Stealer. And I'm like, right, okay. Yorkshire Gripper. And I'm like, right, okay. So I'm getting all these names, right? Go to Stuart Cooper. And he goes, I'm Stuart Cooper. And I went, dude, come on, mate. You're the Spielberg. And like, I don't think he liked it because I was going, he's the Scorsese of submissions. So I'm just throwing shit out there, right, as we're doing it. And it was so funny because, mate, some of the fights they were unreal. Some of them, they were grinders, but they were good. Yeah. And then like, it was like Lloyd, it was like, I couldn't believe it. Because I did the MC and then at Grapple Max, and I hadn't seen Lloyd since then. And then I was like, dude, like, where have these three kids arrived from? Because you were getting engaged, and I think Bear might have been on the scene, this young lad, but he might have been there. But next thing is like this plethora of kids, and like the thing is with Lloyd, like the crack is there's guys that I really like in the BJJ community. And then I just he's just like for an advert for jiu-jitsu, he's been there. You know what I mean? Because sorry, Lloyd, if you're watching this, but when you see him when he first started jiu-jitsu, he looked like he was in a boy band. He looked like he was in One Direction or something, and then he's turned into this absolute killer. I said Densetsu was so funny because I really believe that was. Like, as you were saying there, if we'd have been able to do a staggered thing where it was like, right, okay, so January is your month. But it would always be the same. The problem with jiu-jitsu is, yeah, but do you know what? I want June or July. And you're like, yeah, everybody wants June and July, mate. Yeah, nobody wants January. And if they'd have worked it out,
but I think back then, I believe there was a bit more respect to hierarchy. So if Braulio turned around and said, I want this, he'd be like, all right, you get the first shout. It's like... top bunk sort of thing. Black belt gets the top bunk, blue belt gets the middle, and white belt gets the bottom bunk. It's like we've lost that on, but that's another topic on today. But going back to Densetsu, it made Fionn as well. Fionn put her money down. She couldn't sell any tickets. She won her prize money and then went off to the ADC, and everything else is history. So that was the beginning, ironically, for quite a few people going on the scene, and then it built a few names and. No, I'm very proud of that moment because, again, financially did nothing for anything. But, again, my life isn't based on finance, so I won't be doing what I'm doing. So it's like the pride I get from that competition, still when someone like yourself can bring that up. There's videos in the archives of YouTube on there. Again, dodgy Wi-Fi, not the greatest, but it's out there. It's the start of Fionn. She went through to be a world champion off the back of that. I can't say it's us who's done that, but we're a small contributing factor to financially helping that person. Lloyd went on the back of that, I wouldn't say got his opportunities again because of that, but we did shine a light in a few guys' faces that like these are the people. And I think that felt like the start of the celebrity jiu-jitsu scene and where it's getting to now, I think, for the UK guys anyway.
Yeah, I think you have... You like so that I'm guessing that was 2017.
Yeah, I couldn't even remember now. Like I said,
Yeah. Well, my father was still alive, so it's 2017. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we've reminisced so much, right? So one of the reasons that I really wanted to speak to you is your involvement with British wrestling, how you got there, and where you're going to take it.
Well, with British wrestling, I think it was so I didn't have a British. It was after COVID. So let me try and count back this year so I'm correct. It's 2006 now. Libby's been there 2 years. So I think it was Manchester Open 2024. Could have been 23, but around them time, Libby Genge, so Paul's thing.
I remember it being a like 11, 12-year-old kid competing.
Libby's a superstar. I say all the time that I always see Libby as that little 11-year-old girl coming up to me in a service station saying, thank you so much for the opportunities for me to... Because her dad always used to say, oh, can she fight in this division? Can she fight up an edge? Can she do this? I never really did it for many people, but because Libby had the skill to it and he said it's going to help her in her career, I always just bent the rules a little bit for Libby and just said, right, you can move up. That was the start of the children fighting up and stuff like that. Because we were pretty strict on the rules back then. Even though we didn't have any safeguarding policies as such as we do now, it was like we had our 10% weight rule, we had our age rule, you can't go up, you can't do this. But especially with girls, it was so difficult for them to get matches back then. It was like, right, you go on, do it. So yeah, I remember Libby coming up to me, a sweet little girl, just saying like, thank you so much. I thought, wow, she's a confident young lady. Yeah. And so I've always had a good relationship with the Genge family. So when Libby turned around and asked me to hold... So you're going to have some news here. So it was a grappling competition for the British wrestling. So UWW, the plan for the future is to have grappling in the Olympics. So what they're doing now is building the framework for that to happen. So back then, so they've held world championship, European championships for a while now. They're changing over a little bit. I think judo's put the foot down and said we want the gi. So you're going to have to go to the no gi sort of version.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be more no-gi now. But yeah, she said, oh, can you organise a competition for, basically we need a trials so we can get people, so we can get a team, because UWW have been on the back. They're basically like the main federation. They're the pathway to the Olympics for the wrestling and everything. So it's the United World United World Wrestling. You'll see them onto their competitions. So she said, can you organise this competition? Like, yeah, love it. Again, prestige. Felt like I was working with UAE again. We love working with these prestigious organisations. So we organised the first competition. We had about 50 people go. Wasn't that popular. A few wrestlers, few. We actually got a team together. I think it was Max, a few guys. We had about 5 or 6 guys qualify, which couldn't go. So we ended up sending a majority ladies team over to the UWW European or World Championships. I think there's a real chance for wrestling to push forward. So just to go back so we won a trials event at British Wrestling HQ. Went through, we had about 50 people compete. We got quite a good team for the people who came. There's Max Bickerton and his crew were down there, but we ended up with a very strong female team going over. I think Libby Genge won gold medal and Injana won a gold medal onto there. So that was the first medals British wrestling's had out of any sport for quite a while. We've just had a couple recently. So it was a good start for us onto there. So that's when I got my first touch of the wrestling. We tried running a second trial to the second team, but it fell on deaf ears. This is a real struggle to really explain to people that the Olympics is bigger than the IBJF. It's such a hard sell for these people. Like, they don't realise off the back of an Olympic medal what sort of career that can launch you into in the media or adverts wise, rather than turning up at your gym with an IBJF gold medal from even the Worlds. It's like you might sell a few seminars, but outside our niche sport, who really going to understand? But if you tell someone I've got an Olympic medal, then I think everyone understands what the Olympic medal is. So yeah, so that was my first taste for it. Libby was the events organizer who invited me. She did the job, and then she's decided now to go full-time athlete, push everything. I think her dad's retiring soon, so they're going to set up.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Together. Yeah, so she said, that's enough for me. Working life isn't for me. I want to become a jiu-jitsuer. So I saw her advertising the role. I just thought to myself, do you know what? I'm a sucker for a challenge. My ADHD just makes me want to do everything every time, and I believe I can do every single job in the world. So I went for my interview, blagged my interview. I think my experience, it on paper, it counts for itself. Like the amount of training and little things, and just with Ghost, the UAE, the amount of detail they put into what we had to do. Like I won't bore you with everything now. That's another hour in itself. Just the amount of meetings we've had to go through, and just off the back of it, of just little things like not having trainers in pictures when they took official photographers, just little tiny details like this, which have set me up in good stead to deliver good competition. So I spoke to Craig and Ian. We had a good conversation. I said to them, I can see where wrestling is now, and it was where jiu-jitsu was in 2007, 2008. We're at the beginning. If the right people push it in the right direction, it could be massive. If we use the UFC properly, it could be massive. All we need is someone to come through with a bit of wrestling from the UK. It can be massive. So I really do think, and I'm not going to be biased now. I went down to my first competition in January, the English Open, and 16 years in jiu-jitsu. If you ever see me in my competitions now at 24/7, I'll be sat on the door. I don't watch the jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu's hard work to watch all day, every day.
Yeah.
It's a real struggle for someone who's been in the sport so long. It's a bit more entertaining now because of, obviously we've got a few like highlight reel moves off some people, but it's the same old going through.
Yeah.
I think the most exciting action in jiu-jitsu is the wrestling and the judo part of it. It's the takedowns, which has been an argument which you brought at the beginning about guard pulling. I think the most exciting bit. And when I went to the first competition, I watched the wrestling all day. And then I don't know if it's because I was new to the sport, but I've seen wrestling, so I don't think it is. And it was just so exciting. It's an exciting sport to watch. The way they allow the athletes to express themselves and celebrate afterwards. It's part of the culture that they can do a backflip, they can do whatever afterwards. It's just a completely different mindset because I remember Trevor Birmingham winning and getting DQ'd at a high level competition because he was separated. And then that was something which stuck in my mind, that there's no need for the pedanticness of that to ruin someone's training, hard work, and actual achievement because they wanted to celebrate. And I think with wrestling, they celebrate that sort of character, and it's a fun sport to be around.
Yeah,
it is a fun sport to be around, and it just reminds me of them grassroots sawdust gyms again.
Yeah,
at the beginning. So I think it's a bit of nostalgia as well, which comes back.
Well, there is that, but it's just as you were saying it. So the IBJJF, right? So, dear listener, if you don't know what we're on about, think of the most important organisation in the world that is run by lizards wearing human skin suits. And then the IBJF is higher than them in jiu-jitsu, right? So, we've got the Illuminati, supposedly, right? Hey, the algorithm's going to love this, Will. Don't worry about that, right? So the world's ran by some cabal, right? The IBJJF is higher than that in the hierarchy of BJJ. Yes, all right.
It runs jiu-jitsu without being the official governing body.
Exactly.
I haven't seen anything like it in my life, how much control they've got over the sport, how it's just looked upon as the holy grail of the sport. It's changed a little bit now with the ADCC, but I think it's just because I've read this as well in an article the other week, that the no-gis guys are very loud. They're very, very loud. So on the internet, it seems like it's all no-gi, but again, just in this country, Braulio's just done the British Open. That's close to 17, probably 1,800 individual registrations.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people doing the gi. So the gi isn't dead. The gi's massive. And I think the IBJF, as long as they control the gi, will always control the sport.
Yeah, I think, well, you see, the thing is, this is, so my issue with the IBJJF is this. It literally is, I'm going to use an analogy for anybody who ever watched the World of Sport Wrestling is going to get this, right? So Big Daddy, he was the champ. You remember how he used to rock up with the top hat? He looked like he was like, I don't know, he looked like he was my local councillor standing for reform, basically, with that Union Jack waistcoat he was wearing and stuff. But you know what? Big deal. And he used to win all the time. And I'm like, how are you winning? You're out of shape, you're fat. And then I was like, oh, damn. His brother is the referee. And that is the IBJJF. It's like, well, we need to speak to the governing body. Who's in charge? You go, who's in charge? Carlinos Gracie. Yeah, I think he hasn't. I think the Monopolies Commission might need to be called in for him. But it was like you were saying about the Nogi. Nogi is loud, but that's the internet. Like unfortunately, the silent majority is a thing, right? Yeah. Everyone thinks that Nogi's won. As we said earlier, anybody over 35 who's still doing Nogi, I look at them regularly. Like I do it as a compliment. Like, it's a compliment to my training, right? But as I always say, when I see a guy at 40 doing no gi and not doing the gi, he reminds me of the guy in the nightclub in the late 90s, early noughties. Yeah, he's had his teeth capped, he's got the blonde tips in his hair and that. And you're like, dude, you're 20 years older than any of the women in here that you fancy. Leave. Yeah, you shouldn't be in this nightclub anymore. And that's how I felt in BJJ, because I had the little bit of burnout where I was like, so what am I in here for? And then I realised, which is going to bring me full circle back, and I'm going to actually ask for a really honest and heartfelt answer for this, right? Because we're at the age where I know that you've had your moments where you go, why am I still in this? And then it's the whole thing where it's like, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is it the fact that I don't want to have to admit to myself that I might have wasted a few years hanging around a hobby? Yeah, as I always say about jiu-jitsu, and Braulio told me it first, and I love it. Braulio said, BJJ is the worst mistress you'll ever have, because you will love her more than she will ever love you. And then he said, and guess what? She gets to bang you a lot more than you get to bang her, right? That's BJJ, right? Because it's sometimes a hammer, sometimes in a nail, and I'm like, well, I'm the nail all the time. So this is how we're going to wrap it up, hopefully in a very seamless way. So we know what got you in, we know what kept you in for a while, but as the introspective man and deep thinker that I do know you are, because I've loved you from day one, mate. You're a great guy. Where is it now that you sit in the BJJ world? You've got one foot in the wrestling world. Where are you going from here? Going forward, what's the future hold for BJJ 24/7? And Lawrence Dutton, the world famous Preston Dutty hashtag, if you are on Instagram.
Well, I'm still doing the competitions. Because we had a choice a couple of years ago to push on and make it a full-time job, do it every month like some of the competitions are. So some of my competitors, one of them's doing 14 competitions a year, the other one's now doing 34 competitions in the UK a year. So I've gone for a different approach, and we've scaled back to what we originally did. So we do 7 or 8 competitions. I have the summer off because when I started, no one trained jiu-jitsu competitions in the summer. It was a season. It peaked in January, which is still the busiest time of year because of the Euros onto there. So everyone trains. It's a strange sport, jiu-jitsu. Everyone trains over Christmas. No one likes Christmas dinner. So they love this. They love being a martyr and training over Christmas. But again, I think that just resonates with people that jiu-jitsu keeps you off the bottle, stops you smoking, stops you drinking. So I think they do celebrate that a little bit, that the restraints it gives you, I think it does give people a motivation for that. So we do have figurehead competitions. We did do 3 in Brighton because we was contracted with a Hilton. But again, one of our competitors decided to do a couple of competitions a year in Brighton, and we don't believe that the ecosystem of the community can support 5 competitions in such a small demographic. So we've dropped one of ours there just to take a bit of pressure off the community and ourselves having to fill one every 4 months. So now we do a winter and a spring competition there. So I think it's like April, May, and November. Again, having the summer off. We're going to do a couple in Manchester. We've got one in Newcastle next week. So, and I think we do one in London now and one in Liverpool. So we don't do a massive circuit. I don't really want to do a massive circuit. I feel like we put on a high level competition. I don't think we've got anything to prove anymore. I do find it exhausting trying to sell these competitions because we're not in everyone's face every month. People do seem to forget pretty quick that we're around. So it's, again, I'm trying to build up relationships with gym owners, but I'm an older man now. I'm not a younger person. So a lot of these young, spunky young males and females coming through now, full of charisma and character, probably don't even know who I am, probably don't even know who 24/7 is either. So I do find it pretty exhausting having to sell ourselves and doing social media, which I wish I didn't have to be on at all because it's run its course for me now. Social media, it really has. But again, I don't want to sound downbeat. I'm really appreciative of it. I still want to put on really good competitions. I'm really content. And if we're not as big as some of our competitors, which I don't believe we are anymore now, and we're a good second best to these people, but a high quality competition, then I'm happy with that. I don't need to boost my ego and be the biggest and the best. I'm pretty content with where we are. I'll always trying to improve because that's my nature. I'll always trying to push on, but I really believe the skill of competition organising has been taken away. Things that I learned and Neil learned with Smooth Comp now. Smooth Comp's a double-edged sword. It's really good, but again, it's taken off. Just taken all you need is a bit of finance behind yourself and watch a few tutorials and you can put on a competition. So the skill has been taken away from it. So that did set me up a bit back. Everyone's advertised on the same platform. The emails I get through, they think every competition is Smooth Comp. They don't understand it's different competitions, different organisations running these. So they expect standards. So it's a weird one in there. We're not going to stop. I'd say I've got a good passion still for running the competitions. The wrestling is a different story. That is a challenge in itself with working for a national governing body. The restraints involved. I wouldn't say the people involved, but people's attitudes involved. So it's going to be hard to change. I remember a sketch. I don't know if you remember it years ago. I don't know if you was into football, but Soccer AM had a really good spell where they had a sketch and it was a Yorkshire sketch, and basically a news person came on and he said, "Change is not good." And then I think that's the mindset where a lot of people have, that change isn't good. I think with Jiu-Jitsu, it's total opposite. That's why it's good to balance the two. I think change is inevitable in Jiu-Jitsu, just the way it's been created and the way it is, the ecosystem. And I think it likes to reinvent itself every year, possibly every 6 months. It's constantly reinventing itself. That's why it gives opportunity for new starting businesses, which is good. Again, everyone's got the opportunity, but you'll see a white belt starting a gi brand saying no one's done it like us before. Yeah. I find it a lot now with the females, or they're in the sport 6 to 8 months and then they're going to make the greatest female brand ever, even though there's some really, really well established female brands out there. So, and I think they've been in the sport not long enough to even realise they're out there. They don't believe anything's out there. So just to compare the two sports, I think, wrestling is back where we were at the beginning. It feels like there's a lot of growth we can do for it, but it's never going to get to where Jiu-Jitsu is, just because 12x12 mats on wrestling holds it back so much financially for the restraints, because the size of the venues we have to get for the wrestling to create any sort of competition I can do in Jiu-Jitsu and get the same numbers to pay for itself it's unattainable. It's really is. We've been to Ballers this weekend, and if it was a jiu-jitsu competition, we could have quite easily had 12 mats in there, and 12 mats generates a very large income onto there. That's a lot of competitors, but we're wrestling. We squeezed 4 mats in, and so. But it's a challenge in itself. It's something I want to try and work towards, but I think I can only get it so far, just because to get it where jiu-jitsu is, people have to be paying twice as much mat fees because the mats take up twice as much room. That's in layman terms, that's the only thing I can really say onto there. So for them to have the experience, but I'm used to working on shoestring budgets. I'm a northerner. How life is onto here.
You know how to stretch it, right?
We know how to stretch it. It's a bit of stress, but we all like a bit of stress. It drives me through, and I'm just hoping when I do leave British wrestling, I've left it in a better place than when I started onto there. But I think with jiu-jitsu, I don't think there is any end. I think I'm in this for the long run. It's always been something since 2008. I've been addicted to. I've always been in and out of training. My son really drove me to train a lot more often when he started training. He's coming into the end of his high school years now. He's had a little hiatus because of his braces. Didn't really fancy training with braces, which are understandable. I've seen a lot of kids constantly into there. So I've not trained as much as I should have done. Again, on a personal level, you feel like you should be there every day. That's why jiu-jitsu is so addictive. You feel like you never train enough. But I believe once he comes back training again, I'll be back training with him, especially now he's going to be a young adult. I think that's going to reignite something in me into there. And I just can't think of a time where jiu-jitsu won't be in my life. It's a real love-hate relationship with it, with doing the competition. And I've always seen a different side to jiu-jitsu than just training. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say, of everybody. I've got a bit of different mindset on jiu-jitsu than other people. I've got a lot more truths than the majority of people. I've seen behind the curtains, as you would say. I've seen the home truths. I've seen the nasty bits. I've seen the highlights, and I still love the sport. It's a really odd thing to comprehend sometimes, but.
Well, that I was going to say to you, right? Yeah, I've been there as well. As my eldest son Jack says to me, Dad, you're a coral belt in cognitive dissonance. He said, you look at people and you go, right, okay, but you go, no, Dad, he did that part there. You can't do it. But again, that would be for another one. All I'll say to you is, first of all, Lawrence, thanks for your time. Secondly, as you said, when you're talking about leaving it in a better place, right?
Yeah.
Look at where BJJ was and competitions as well. And again, I'm not going to brag on any of your competitors, but the one advice I would give to anybody is, if you're going to have an event, don't have white mats. Or if you do have white mats, guess what? Clean them more, right? So that's the one thing, right? That's the easiest way of saying that.
A bit of bleach goes a long way.
It does. Yeah. Staff is a thing, right? So that's one thing, right? But the thing is, mate, from when I first met you to where we are now, I didn't think, I thought, stupidly, more Brazilians would be millionaires out of it than English guys. The guys who have made really good money out of it, unreal. But unfortunately, we still have that mentality where it's a case of, we're artists, we have to suffer for our art. I don't think we should do. As businessmen, we should just turn around and go, look, mate, I changed your life. Yeah, it's got, as John Will always says, like, basically, it's a cup of coffee a day. That's what you're paying, and I'm your Yoda. Yeah, and you don't want to pay that. Okay, I'm not your Yoda anymore. That's what. But what it is, mate, first of all, thank you so much. Great for the insights. We ironically steered away from loads of the some people would say the more spicy aspects of jiu-jitsu. But I think there could definitely
be a part 2, 3, and 4. I think the amount of the years we've been in jiu-jitsu,
we could do. But the thing is, but as you said, at our age now, it's like, even I'm getting bored of being the enfant terrible on social media. I used to love throwing a hand grenade in, causing mayhem. You commented a few times on them, but it's like I can't go on Reddit anymore because that kills me. BJJ Underground, I don't think I've been on it for ages, just for the simple fact I can't handle the witch hunts.
I withdrew myself from that. I think it was 18 months ago. One of the best things I ever did. It was pretty toxic, but then the algorithm takes over, and you just a video, and then before you know it, you're watching something, and you're thinking, "What on earth is going on?" And again, it's just, I think, the way of the world and the way it seeps through with everyone. I just feel like I'm turning into that old grumpy man now, and it's just a stage in my life. But and again,
maybe embrace it. Embrace it.
Embrace it. And again, I might be the weird. Well, I know I'm the weird one, so I can't criticize anyone for what they're doing. It's their journey. They'll learn themselves if that's the right path for them. And that's
well, as I've always said, it's like, and sorry if you're a big Helio fan, but like there's actually, Helio Gracie told the story of once where he beat up a shark. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, but it's like, Helio, I'm not going to take advice from you, my old mate. We will wrap it up here, but it's like, Lawrence, we put a lot of our life into a martial art that we don't even really know the history of. As you said, the parts 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you ever want to do it, we'll do it. But it's that whole situation where it's like, even the Gracies can't admit what actually happened. You know what I mean? And so I quite like it because
I'll touch on that point there, that we could have all been doing luta livre if it weren't for one gentleman winning a fight on a beach.
Yeah.
And that was the original tough guy when they used to dojo storm and police used to get cold, and they were the gangsters who did it, and they had a set to on the beach, and one of the Gracies won, and then we had jiu-jitsu, and that's how we're doing jiu-jitsu instead of luta livre.
The frail brother, and you're like, mate, honestly, I've got this theory. Sorry if you're a Helio fan, but Helio nowadays, if he was training with us, he'd be sitting out on Cookwall, on the corner. The guy who sits out on the restaurants, and you're like, dude, your back shouldn't be to the mat. I'm like, Henzo Gracie's like, you don't sit down. You don't sit down with your back to the mat when everyone else is rolling. Be in the trenches or get out. You know what I mean? But I've always been more that side of the family. Not so much Hyan because he's a madman. Not so much Half because he's a madman. But guess what? Henzo is the man. That's the guy to follow. But Lawrence, I'm going to send my greetings to you up in the north because it's my favourite part of the world. And take care, brother. And there's no point in trying to reach out to you on Instagram because you've detached from all that, yeah? But BJJ 24/7, right?
Yeah, BJ 24/7, Preston Dutty on there. I still go on. I'm more of a watcher rather than a poster now. But again, I find it hard work. I've still got to put my posts out on 24/7 advertising. It's the way it goes. But yeah, I don't do much commenting. I do more watching now. Rather to see what's going on.
Hey, when you get to our age, a bit of voyeurism is, well, did I just say that out loud? But anyway, Will loves that shit. Anyway, Will, thank you so much. Everyone else who's watching in, guess what? Follow BJJ 24/7 events or Preston Dutty. Check him out. The thing is, Lawrence is one of the original OGs, just one of the most legitimate men I ever met in martial arts, not just in BJJ. I still haven't forgiven you for restarting me in that position. You know what I mean? It was a bit.
Well, I made a lot of mistakes in my life, and that's probably one of them. On today, I'm man enough to admit it. On today. It might have been standing up and 2 points to your opponent. And in hindsight, now as a more experienced martial artist.
Oh, mate! I tell you what, 30 seconds to go as well, and it was like Neil was like, "If you're on top," because Neil shouting, "Just stay on top," and then I was like that. And like the thing is, back in the day, Neil was a big old boy. So I'm not. He certainly wasn't fat, but he was just a big old guy. And there was, let's put it this way, there was more of him on the mat than on me. That's how big the guy was. He was huge, and I was just underneath this guy doing unreal. It was. I'm trying to think. Who's the? I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He's a country and western singer. He's just been on the Ozempic, but he was a big old boy. I can't remember. Anyway, but I was under giant haystacks. Imagine that. Ooh, see what you can do with that algorithm. All right. Bye-bye, guys.